Bhavik gave a really good refresher and introduction on first and third party trust. I'm going to do the same. I'm also going to talk about ABLE accounts and a little bit about Midwest Special Needs Trust and what we can do for the families of the St. Louis Arc and for your loved ones. So what's in it for me? What's in it for your loved one? What's in it for you? For your child with a disability, you as the caretaker, and sometimes we have case managers who this presentation is also given to, and how they maybe can help talk to their families about planning for their child with a disability. I tend to use Johnny, but since Joey is already with us this evening, I'm going to try and stick with Joey as our example here. Again, we are going to learn about the 3 types of special needs trust. So first party trust, third party trust, pooled trust, which is new, right? We haven't heard that term yet tonight. That's what Midwest Special Needs Trust does, and ABLE accounts. So a special needs trust is established for the sole benefit of the person with a disability, the primary benefit, the exclusive benefit for the person with a disability, meaning it really can't benefit anybody else. If there's a small benefit, fine. They're all sharing the modified vehicle. They're all watching the cable TV, those kinds of things. But primary benefit, the beneficiary with a disability. It is a financial planning tool available to individuals, families, and friends. It is utilized for supplemental needs and not basic support. And I know there are lots of questions about how a special needs trust can be used. I'm going to answer those questions. It is governed by trust language and applicable statutes. Attorneys, banks, and pooled trust organizations are all options to establish and administering special needs trust, and are considered an exempt asset for SSI, Medicaid, food stamps, and HUD housing. So Bhavik gave us a really great explanation of what those are, and that those public benefits are resource tested, and a special needs trust is considered an exempt asset for those. To jump right in, first party trust, also called self-settled trust, also called Medicaid payback trust, are established by the parent, grandparent, guardian, court, or the individual with a disability under the age of 65. We had the age limit question. It's important to remember this age limit under the age of 65, and it is with the beneficiary's own assets. The unplanned inheritance. So family members didn't have the opportunity to plan. They didn't know they were supposed to plan. And Joey receives an unplanned inheritance. He can put that into a first party trust. Settlements from lawsuits. So personal injury settlements are often one of the largest funding sources for first party trusts. And then Social Security back payment. So you've gone through the process of applying to Social Security and you get a larger sum of a back payment. You can put that into a first party special needs trust. First party trusts are irrevocable, meaning they typically can't be changed, and you can't close out the trust just because you're mad at the trustee. And Medicaid payback is required. Medicaid says Johnny can have these funds while he's living. Joey can have these funds while he's living. But after he passes away, Medicaid gets paid back for the services they provided during his lifetime. So that's a first party trust. Third party trust. This is really where we're concentrating tonight. We want to be proactive in planning for our loved ones. And so it is established by a donor, not the person with a disability. Joey's not funding a third party trust, right? Because it's not his money. It is the donor's assets. Typical sources of funds include personal funds, life insurance policies, wills, estates, 401ks, IRAs are all funding sources for a third party. Third parties can be revocable or irrevocable. And upon the beneficiary's death, they are distributed per the donor's wishes. So charitable organizations, other family members, I've paid community centers and all kinds of things at the end of a third party trust, because there is no Medicaid payback. No Medicaid payback with a third party. That is the most important takeaway, is that a first party has Medicaid payback and a third party does not. And that's because it was never the beneficiary's own money. It was somebody else's money for the benefit of the beneficiary. So first party, Joey's own money. Third party, somebody else's money for Joey. We are going to change it up, and I'm going to talk about pooled trust. Pooled trusts are established by a nonprofit organization with the individual beneficiaries creating accounts within a larger trust. So we call those sub accounts. Essentially, all of our third party trusts that have been funded are in one giant pool, and all of our first party trusts that have been funded are in one giant pool. And those pools all have different sub accounts in them. And the sub accounts each have a life beneficiary, and their funds are accounted for. They are placed in a pool for investment purposes, investment and tax and management purposes, but the beneficiary sub account remains his own. First party trust must still be established by the parent, grandparent, guardian, or the court, or the individual of any age. And you said, hold on, Casey, you guys talked about how there's an age limit. With a pooled trust, there is actually no age limit per the federal law. However, Medicaid programs have come back and said there may be an age limit. Here in Missouri, the age limit is 65. But again, another caveat, if you're working with Midwest Special Needs Trust, no age limit. So Medicaid has given us the exception, and specifically Midwest Special Needs Trust, no other pool trust administering Missouri has this exception for us to be able to administer first party trusts for individuals of any age, as long as they're receiving Medicaid benefits. And the thing about a pool trust, what makes us different than having a private attorney do it or having a bank administer the funds is a couple of things. One, it is a master trust. So our documents aren't being written for individual circumstances. They are a master trust that has, one, been approved by Medicaid. Medicaid, in fact, for Midwest Special Needs Trust, per our state statute, written in 1989. So we've been around a little less than 35 years. Medicaid is required by law to exempt Midwest Special Needs Trust documents. And then we have also been approved by the Social Security Administration. So there's no taking the document to Medicaid, there's no taking the document to Social Security because it's already done for you. It is essentially fill in the blank for ours. It's a master trust agreement. You're reading the master trust and you're filling out a joinder agreement, which is all of the demographic information. You're deciding who is the co-trustee, what is the amount of funds going into the trust, who are the remainder beneficiaries. That is all kind of for the master trust and the joint agreement. And then for the charitable portion, so we have to be a nonprofit charitable organization. The charitable portion, Midwest Special Needs Trust runs a charitable grant program. I don't have any information on that with me this evening. If that's something that you're interested in learning more about, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. But at the closing of the trust for any reason, both for first party and third party, Midwest Special Needs Trust retains 25%. If you were going to look at other pooled trust organizations, many retain 100% on closing or retain 50%. So we do retain 25% for the closing of a special needs trust. And that the charitable grant program helps individuals with disabilities who live in Missouri and are under a certain income level. So paying for items or services they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. So pooled trust at Midwest Special Needs Trust, we have several options. We have first party trusts, we have third party trusts, and then we also have inactive trust, which essentially it's unfunded, right? So the trust is inactive. It's sitting there waiting to be funded by the donor at their death, typically. And these are the ones that I like to talk about with the family members because the cost up front isn't that much compared to having a private trust drafted or working, kind of building it into your estate planning. It's you fill out the documents, you give them to me, and I sit here with them until the trust is ready to be funded. It is a wonderful option for third-party trusts. And even if you have your special needs trust and you've named all of your trustees, and then your trustees no longer want to serve, what do you do then? Because there still may be funds in that third-party trust. You can list Midwest Special Needs Trust as a successor trustee and have an inactive here, and the documents are all taken care of for you. So that's a great way to utilize our services. And so we have first party and third party, and then we have our pooled trust. Essentially, a pooled trust is just an organization that serves as trustee for special needs trusts. Allowable distributions. I know this has been a hot topic tonight. Medical, dental, supplemental services, rehab, education, clothing, transportation, travel, home modifications, entertainment, anything that is supplemental. This is not an exhaustive list. It doesn't cover everything that we can pay for. Phone, cable, internet, the number of checks we write a week for those telecommunication expenses is probably our primary expense here that we pay out of a special needs trust. Irrevocable prepaid burial policies. I cannot tell you enough that they are one of the most important things that you can do for your loved ones is purchase an irrevocable prepaid burial policy. They're incredibly important because at the end of the trust, specifically for a first party, we can't buy the funeral when the beneficiary passes away. So we can with a third party, but we can't with a first party. And I have had the conversation with more than one family member over my many years experience explaining to them I'm not able to pay for those, that cost at a very difficult and stressful time. So irrevocable prepaid burial policies, transportation, travel expenses, all of the vacations, all of the expenses, food, hotel, airline, all of those are covered. Events, amusement parks for the beneficiary and one companion. So companion care is covered. And then the other one is medical and dental. So dental and medical are oftentimes covered by Medicaid and or Medicare if that person has that benefit as well. However, there's always going to be something that costs extra, right? So the extensive dental work isn't covered. Hearing aids oftentimes aren't covered. Braces sometimes aren't covered for adults. So lots of medical and dental expenses that just aren't covered. I'm seeing an increase in ambulance bills come across my desk, and ambulances aren't being covered as well. So the special needs trust can pay for those needs. What I like to say is I can send you to the movies, but I can't pay for the popcorn. So food is not an allowable expense, neither is rent or utilities. Those are some of the things I cannot pay for. But if we have somebody and they're living in a skilled facility, they're living in a nursing home, and the nursing home has a room available and that person wants a private room, I can pay for the private room difference between the Medicaid room rate and the private room rate. And the individual with a disability now has their own room at their facility, and we can like really make it their home, which is one of our favorite things to do for individuals, especially those that may be younger than the nursing home crowd, is to give them their own room and fill it with their furniture and things that they need. So this again is not an exhaustive list. One of the things I see sometimes is that folks, wheelchairs are paid for by Medicaid, but they want the wheelchair that does the extra stuff, right? They need the ones with all the bells and whistles. That's the one they want. Their special needs trust can pay for the bells and whistles on the wheelchair, and will be something that I always advocate for more comfort, more ease of use. All of those things we want to do and are the supplemental needs of the life beneficiary. So I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to switch gears over to the ABLE account. So what is ABLE all about? It is also available as a financial planning tool for persons with disabilities and their families. Similar to a 529 savings plan. When I say similar, I mean almost exactly copy and paste to the college savings plans. It does provide autonomy and independence for individuals. So no trustee is saying, no, you can't do that. No co-trustee is saying, no, you can't do that. The individual is making that decision themselves. The interesting part is individuals must be disabled before the age of 26. So we do have an age limit with the ABLE account in the way of when the person became disabled. So those that became disabled as an adult who had a traumatic brain injury at 35, or who have a massive heart attack at 45, or who are diagnosed with cancer at 56, they are not going to qualify for the ABLE account because their disability didn't happen until much later in life. One account per person. right? So special needs trust, we learned you can have a first party and a third party. In fact, you can have multiple third parties if you wanted to. One account per person with the ABLE account and up to $16,000 in deposits per year. That's changing in 2023 to 17,000, but right now that is 16,000. And what I feel like is sometimes a little known fact about the ABLE account is that there is a Medicaid payback provision within the ABLE account. There are some rules on how they deduct it and the timeline for that Medicaid payback, but there is Medicaid payback with the ABLE account. So we talked about what a special needs trust can pay for, and we're going to talk about what an ABLE account can pay for, and you're going to see some big differences. One of the things that the qualified disability expenses really can pay for anything and everything that the individual with a disability might need, as long as it is for them as well. You'll see on my list here, I have housing, and you said, Casey, but a special needs trust can't pay for room and board. Correct. An ABLE account can. An ABLE account can pay for an individual's housing expenses, including rent, utilities, and room and board at a facility. So how do we make that work, right? We can have a special needs trust over here. The special needs trust trustee can issue funds over to the ABLE account once a year for $16,000 or whatever it may be in 2023, 17,000. And now that person has those funds available to pay their rent and utilities out of the ABLE account, which I think is a wonderful way to utilize both tools. Health and wellness expenses, transportation expenses. And then one of the major things that an ABLE account can pay for that I cannot is expenses, including funeral expenses after the death of the life beneficiary. I find that to be a wonderful thing with the ABLE account, because if I have to tell them no, hopefully they have an ABLE account and they're able to pay for a small portion of it at least. I've not seen anything be denied or any kind of tax consequence for qualified disability expense in my experience. It doesn't mean that the IRS isn't looking at it, and it doesn't mean that there aren't disqualified expenses. I just haven't seen anything happen with my folks who have ABLE accounts. So I always tell folks, keep your receipts, make sure it's for the beneficiary, and that you're following these general guidelines. So I do want to spend some time talking about when an ABLE account may be better than a special needs trust, and vice versa, when a special needs trust may be better, and how they can both work together. So if your loved one is really good with money and really good at keeping receipts, or is learning that's in their care plan on how to handle finances, an ABLE account may be a good plan for them. There's still a little bit of oversight. It's a little bit of money. They can put their wages in there and kind of make some decisions when smaller amounts of money are involved. So if we have mom and dad who leave Joey $100,000, that's too much for an ABLE account. But if mom and dad leave Joey $10,000, that's a good amount for an ABLE account. If your third-party donors aren't concerned with Medicaid payback, again, the Medicaid payback with the ABLE account is very different than a special needs trust, but it is still there. And some third-party donors don't want that at all. They are very concerned with the Medicaid payback provision. And then we do have the time where individuals with lifelong disabilities who need to conserve funds after the age of 65 may be imposed a transfer penalty. An ABLE account may work for them. I've seen it work a couple of times in very specific circumstances, but it is a way that somebody over the age of 65 may be able to preserve their public benefits. Special needs trust may be an option when ABLE account contribution limits are too constrictive, right? So again, that 100,000 is too much for an ABLE account. It's perfect amount for a special needs trust, especially with Midwest Special Needs Trust. When the disability related needs are too restrictive, I don't I don't like this example very well because I think that all things are disability related when it comes to our loved ones and their needs that they have, their supplemental needs. And then when multiple accounts are preferred or necessary. So we have family members, they all want different remainder beneficiaries. They're all going to have to open a third party trust for Joey. They all can't give to the ABLE account because the ABLE account has Medicaid payback. So they want to give to other people, and the ABLE account is not going to be a great way for them to be able to do that. And special needs trust may also be a better option when the disability occurred after the beneficiary turns 26. It's the only option at that point to protect third-party assets from Medicaid payback. And when a professional trustee with special knowledge of disability services and public benefits is essential to protect the interests of the beneficiary. So here at Midwest Special Needs Trust specifically, I am trained in public benefits, Social Security, and Medicaid, and am considered a certified work incentives practitioner. Been here 11 years. Midwest Special Needs Trust has been around 35 years. This is what we do. Special Needs Trust administration is all that we do. And I talk about the ABLE accounts as an option to or with the Special Needs Trust, but sometimes people, and especially those on the first party trust side, really want that specific knowledge. They want to know that Medicaid is not going to count it as an asset. They want to know that Social Security says that having this special needs trust is just fine. And they want the trustee who works with Medicaid, who works with Social Security, to work with them in administration of their special needs trust. So, and you're not going to get that with the ABLE account. In fact, getting a hold of them via phone sometimes is difficult. So we want to make sure if that's something that your family member needs, a special needs trust is going to be a better route for them. Both a special needs trust and ABLE account may be used when the criteria for the ABLE account are met. When the proceeds can be divided between the two financial tools. Looks like my 15,000 is out of date. There it is, 16,000. So you have 100,000 over here. You can put 16,000 into an ABLE account and the remainder in the special needs trust. Qualified disability expenses, that's huge. The difference between what a special needs trust can pay and an ABLE account can pay is almost extraordinary. And I could probably give an entire presentation on how to utilize both and the ways that we would do that in our administration at MSNT. So, but housing expenses and funeral expenses and the transfer from a special needs trust to an ABLE account is allowable. And so we do that. We make transfers all the time to ABLE account and are happy to do so, happy to support that program. So this is my contact information. I will kind of close my screen here. If you have any questions or have a specific situation or want to talk about how a first party or third party inactive trust may be a good option for you, please feel free to reach out to me.
So it looks like we have a question about the ABLE account and wondering if it's only an option if Joey is able to make those decisions by himself cognitively.
No, so parents and guardians and even now rep payees can help make those decisions with the ABLE account. It just really was kind of touted in the beginning as an autonomous way for individuals with disabilities to have their own, to be their own.